There is no threat to Earth in 2012. There is no danger. All of the talk about a doomsday is a big hoax.
To forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
It was a glancing blow. Otherwise, all hell would have broken loose over this past weekend.
I want to tell you a story. When it began depends on who you ask, and the answers range from less than a year ago with the alleged discovery of comet Elenin, to thousands of years ago and everything in between. Humans are in a position of ignorance, and any semblance of Socratean recognition or attempts to correct that fact appear to be fading from contemporary society. We are unbalanced at the core, and while many would argue that we have seen no evidence to yet suggest that a shift to equalization is underway, many disagree, and we posit that whatever occurs on one side of the equation will inevitably affect the other, and the greater the delta of one side, a direct correlation can be seen in self-correction. We have been misled into an improper focus in life, and a devastating construct is a paradigm for reality. We find ourselves quick to find enemies and to replace blame with accusations of intention. In this story, the people know that solar radiation is increasing, our magnetic shield failing, and that Fukushima's poison lingers still. And many know that the radiation-absorbing barium in chemtrails may be the only way to mitigate this circumstance while allowing society to function, yet discourse on this topic is one-sided. Perhaps that is the fault of the elites, for they don't deem us capable of knowing their truth, and that secrecy breeds suspicion. In this story, the people know there is a global water shortage and that there's no reason to think that aquifers in the United States would be any different or far behind, and they know that weather modification flooded most of this nation at one point or another this year, yet any kind of notion that the tornadoes or flooding were an unfortunate consequence of saving millions of lives over decades is never discussed. Perhaps that is the fault of the elites, for even after disclosure of concept of weather modification, they've managed to keep us in the dark as to the sheet music for their harp. And that secrecy breeds suspicion. In this story, some of the greatest deceptions have occurred. How could the people not know what the swastika stood for before the Nazis? What the cross stood for long before Jesus Christ? And how that concept connects Saturn, Father Time, and how Jesus on the cross represents Satan or Saturn's victory. How do you tell those true believers that if Jesus ever comes back, the last damn thing he ever wants to see is a cross? And not have them think you're going against their entire religion? Frankly, from the bottom of my heart, the faith and moral teachings of Jesus Christ are among the best on this earth. But what man has done to the Bible is a crime. A crime against you, the very people who will comment on this video negatively. The Jewish people have no idea that their Sabbath comes from a translation of Saturn. Sabbath day, Saturday, is Saturn's day. In this story, the people know that their religious texts have been rewritten, modified, and to this day partially withheld from them. Yet to question the word of any man through whom they believe they hear the word of God is to turn away the very minds we are trying to save. We likely cannot and will not attempt to convince you of these truths. As has been said, the door can only be shown to you. Truthfully, I would like to think that very few people have objectively taken critical reads of as many different religious texts as I have, and I can draw direct lines between and among them in similarity, and straight through to modern day and the 5 sources of all written law on this planet. Through what I do for a living, I can see the paper trails of what moves this world and how deals are done, and while none of the observers have anything to do with any secret occult, society, or global cabal, we have seen enough evidence from credible sources and our own eyes to have all the information we need to understand their place in this puzzle. In this story, perhaps the most polarizing puzzle is the comet known as Elenin. At a time when collapse is so imminent and obvious that it cannot be completely veiled from truly open eyes, someone, somehow created one of the greatest diversions in history. The direct evidence and logic pegged Elenin as a tiny comet with no threat. Yet to all who were in a position to see the fiat reality we live in, could not help but be sucked into the Elenin controversy. While some who rightfully believed the comet was no threat saw no reason to investigate the comet further, we state definitively that no greater piece of evidence illuminating the deception of the elites has offered itself to us. In due time, the Elenin facts will demonstrate that it was a deliberate misdirection, and hopefully who was responsible. But a diversion from what? The end of this story is yet unveiled, and the possibilities for a real devastation are numerous. In a few days, the federal government will test their ability to control the entire communication system. If you will remember why this is our last chance, it is because we are at the peak of recognition of a need for change in our ability to communicate and organize with each other. But the ability to control our communication is growing faster than the discontent of the general population. Our resonance is changing. The HARP digisons show an unusually high level of frequency recently in our critical layer, and a complete disappearance of certain predicted values. The world winces as if a child preparing for a booster shot, cringed, tensed, aware of the potential pain on the horizon. And if you think Iraqi troops coming home is the end of the story, you are mistaken. If you think that the volcanoes in Russia, Indonesia, Chile, Iceland, Japan, and elsewhere have shed and unleashed their deadliest display, you are mistaken. If you think some miracle is going to fix the Eurozone, the United States, and the China stock bubble, you are mistaken. If you believe our failing magnetosphere is going to hold up while our star pounds us over the next 18 months, we hope you are right. If you blindly regurgitate the words of tainted books and men, you will never find the true path to consciousness and to the light. And if you believe in the benevolence of fate, and that all will work out without any effort on our part as individuals and as a collective, then you endure an optimism we do not share. How this story ends is not only uncertain, but it is fluid and potentially changing with our every move. What part will you play in finishing this story? Will you even try? Will those of you who only stop by for Elenin news close your tired eyes and wait for the next mystical relic? Think it's going to be that easy? Will those who feel that solar watching is too boring ultimately decide there is no reason to pay attention? I wanted to tell you this story because you are a writer. Help us finish the story. Think of why you clicked on this video. How did you find your way here and why? If you've tried to help before, chances are that you have met resistance from your family, friends, etc. You have likely been confused by the dozens of ducktails splitting off from the central theme of awakening, being a truther. You've likely seen how hard this road is and how much harder it's getting with each passing day. And it is in this hour, the calm before the storm, which we warned of months ago. We do not know what it will be, austerity pushing people over the edge, another X-flare off the charts, but this time pointed at Earth, maybe World War III. Whatever it is, this is our last chance, if not to change our world, to get right with ourselves, our Earth, and whatever God we believe in. Be safe, everyone. Let's end this story the right way.